And the law, conversación. We are getting ready and we'll be starting on our next session, the Chamorro conversation or conversación. And here to be our moderator is Tomas Manglonia II.
Thank you, Sonia, and I hope you all got something to eat. I'm glad I don't have the disadvantage of a hungry audience. But I advise you to probably eat a snack before you write your questions. Buenas, sizus masi por ifinatunmizo guinigi conversación costumbre, tradición zan ilai. Thank you all for joining us. We are happy to have 4 people who I consider Chamorro icons and leaders for our conversation today. Before introducing the esteemed panel, I wanted to frame today's discussion. Each of our panelists will cover themes related to law, history, family, and medicine. After we hear from each of them, we'll unpack the dialogue as a panel together. And after everyone's spoken, we'll move to a public question and answer for the last half hour of our conversation. Their full bios are provided in the program, but I'll briefly introduce them, starting with we have Senora Marie Soledad Camacho Castro. Marie Soledad Camacho Castro was born and raised in Saipan. Her story began in the 1930s when the Northern Mariana Islands were under Japanese rule. She grew up in a traditional and tightly knit Chamorro family during a time when the island's way of life centered around farming, family, and the Catholic Church. After the war, she devoted herself to the Catholic Church and became a sister in the Mercedarian order. Ms. Castro co-founded Mount Carmel Parochial School in 1952-53 and served as vice principal. Through the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, Ms. Castro published an autobiography of her life, including her knowledge of Chamorro customs and traditions, that's entitled Without a Penny in My Pocket, My Bittersweet Memories Before and After World War II. Let's give a warm welcome to Senora Castro. Our next panelist is Mr. Donald B. Mendiola, also known as Senor Mendiola in the education community. He's a highly respected cultural practitioner and spiritual healer throughout the NMI and Guam. He was nominated for the 2023 Lifetime Achievement in the Humanities Award. From the young age of 8, he started his journey as a Siroanu or traditional healer under the guidance of his grandmother, Tanana Mendiola. Senor Mendiola has been teaching for the NMI public school system in the Chamorro Carolinian Language and Heritage Studies program for over 30 years. Welcome, Senor Mendiola. Our next panelist is Genevieve Cabrera. She's an indigenous daughter of Saipan, reared and nurtured in the cultural tenets of her Chamorro ancestral legacies. She worked professionally for local NMI departments and federal programs and has conducted extensive field research and published and co-published papers dealing with the culture and history of the Northern Marianas. Ms. Cabrera continues her decades-long pursuit of expanding the knowledge base of these ancestral legacies. Welcome, Senora Cabrera. Thank you. And lastly, we have Joey P. San-Nicolas, also known as JP. He's a NMI attorney who focuses on probate law, criminal defense, and civil litigation. He started his legal career as an assistant public defender in 2004 at the NMI Public Defender's Office, then as a private practitioner for many years before becoming a prosecutor at the Guam Attorney General's Office. JP served as a NMI Attorney General from 2012 to 2014. From 2015 to 2019, JP served as mayor of Tinian, and he returned to the practice of law in 2019. Senor San-Nicolas, thanks for joining us. I can't imagine another place to begin this conversación about our costumbre by centering the family. Let's do that first, because we have our first panelist, Senora Castro, who in talking with you before the panel, You wanted to address specifically the role of family and specific roles of godparents and grandparents and some of the customs that you've learned in your many decades of life. So let's begin with you. What is the role of family when it comes to our custom and these traditions?
First of all, I want to thank you because this is a great occasion, and I want to thank Judge Enos for having this program because we have been living with different culture, but we don't know the culture of other people. And this is a great opportunity for us to bring out something of our own. My role is to talk about the Chamorro culture, the role of godparents. My understanding on the role of godparents in our culture is that they are the representative of the godchild's parents in case the parents die or they are absent for a long time. The godparents take the role of the parents. And there are two types of godparents. Baptismo, when the child is born, 3 days after the child is born, the child should be baptized. And the confirmation, godparents, after 8 years of Catholic instruction, the child is ready to receive the confirmation, that is a full-fledged Catholic, where the child can now receive Holy Communion. The important issue regarding the godchild's case, the godparents intervene in behalf of the child. Anything that happens to the godchild, if the parents died, the godparents will intervene and talk about what he or she needs to do. Yeah. The next role of the family is the eldest child in the family. Respect in the family is highly significant in our culture. The eldest child has some authority over his or her brother and sisters. The eldest child should exhibit as a model of the minor in the family. He has the authority to order his minor regarding chores around the house. The minor should obey the eldest with respect. Attitude among minors in the family should demonstrate acts of submission over the elders, such as the tone of voice. Minors should never raise his or her voice to the eldest in the family. And in the case when the eldest or the parents call Maria, the child will not say ha or hafa. That is a disrespectful answer to the parents. You have to answer yes ma'am or yes sir. And the same way with the elders in the family. The next one, the role of grandparents. In general, grandparents are independent from their children after their marriage, unless their health becomes in need of assistance from the children. It is considered an honor among the children in the family to take care of their parents or grandparents. Usually one of the children who is more caring or considerate would be selected for that honor. The next one, the distribution of land. Who gets the family home and distribution of farmland to male children only? Usually, in our custom, the youngest male is entitled to the family home. In addition to an agricultural land, he is entitled to farmland distribution in our culture goes to all male in the family. The reason for this is because the male in the family, when he gets married, he provides the living for his new family. The female would eventually marry and totally dependent on her husband's support. However, distribution of land changes in the case of more female in the family. And to prevent hard feelings among the children, both parents decide fairly the portion of land for each child before they die. The household goods, parents approaching their final stage in life, the children in the family will select anything what their parents personally possess. Such item be designated to whoever wishes to own before their parents' death. Jewelry. Female in the family is entitled to the jewelry. Upon the final stage of the parents, one of the privileged children will be given the last blessing from the parents. And caring for the elderly, our culture of caring for our elderly in the family is unknown to the modern generation. But this is a concern in our community today. I believe that an assisted living or an old age home be provided for our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to open up the conversation to the panel, particularly Senor Nicholas. I wanted to ask you, as an attorney, maybe before your answer to the question, maybe defining for us the concepts of partida and poksai, because in the kind of gender norms that Senora Castro mentioned, there's a difference between the biological and then those under the Pinaksai, right? But maybe first we can define those terms.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
When it comes down to inheritance.
Thank you, Tom. Before I answer, you just want to give a big thank you to the judiciary for hosting this event, Conversation, and Fiyung, is that his Fiyung in Carolina, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this distinguished panel. I have to say at the outset, I am not an expert. I consider myself a student, so I don't hold a candle to anyone up here or to the prior panel, but I am privileged to serve or to be an attorney in a jurisdiction that recognizes Chamorro and Carolinian customary law, so much that it is considered when an issue that deals with it, it's actually part of the decision of our Supreme Court, our Superior Court, and also our legislature has enacted Chamorro customs and fellows customs into our statutes. So particularly with respect to partida, that has to do, and I do have a slide that I was going to share, but I can go straight into that. That is basically the Chamorro custom of calling the father calling the family together, and in consultation with the wife, and announcing to the family the distribution of the land, the real property. And in doing that, he has orally conveyed the property or properties to the children. And so that issue comes up in a typical probate matter because none of this has been recorded. It's all a very oral tradition. And so that information, once it's shared to the court and it's accepted by the court, that actually can become the order of the court as far as the distribution of the real property. So that's a Chamorro custom or tradition of calling the children together and distributing the property. Poksai is another concept under Chamorro customary law, and it's the West version of adoption, but again, without the benefit of anything in writing. I have a personal feeling towards this because I have so many family members who are under the category of Poksai, and fortunately here in the NMI, our courts treat them as natural children of the deceased if it's shown that the individual is Pineksai. And again, there's nothing written or filed. These days, of course, we file just about everything under what's known as the statute of frauds, but a long time ago, there's virtually nothing recorded. So you bring that tradition into the courtroom, and then the court can now fashion an order that reflects the tradition of the partida or Poksai.
I wanted to connect it to Senora Castro's statement on land inheritance practice, where one son would inherit all the land. Where one son would inherit all the land, and kind of just the differences there when it comes to the daughter or the male in the family.
I'm not aware of that tradition. It's maybe Mr. Mendiola has that.
Please.
Okay, here's one thing that I have to share also. Not every family follows the same practice, the traditions. There are many different familial traditions, whereas my family is kind of similar to what you spoke about. The men were given a little more land for farming. The women do get their share, but because the women are going to end up, depending on their spouse's support, they're given a little less land for farming. However, every child is supposed to be given enough land to build a house on, okay? And the oldest child doesn't get to decide on everything, but what is being practiced a long time ago, and this is from information from over 100 elders, some as early as we were born in the 1890s, to about, I don't know, maybe some of them are still alive in their 90s. I got all this information from them that not every family follows the same practice, and so it goes like this. The youngest child, usually, it doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl, the youngest child, because that child is supposedly the last person to mature, maybe find a job and be able to be independent, is automatically given the house, the family home. But if that child was being very ingratu, being very to not be, fulfilling his or her familiar obligation, then the parents can decide, okay, since you're not being a very good child, I'm going to give the home to your older brother or your older sister because you're taking care of us more. And so everybody is expected to contribute to their parents. The parents are expected in their senior ages. They're also help with the raising of the grandkids, whereas the parents would do all the more major type of work around the house and maybe stuff, but grandma and grandpa are also given care to take care of their children as well. But remember, what I'm saying is, not all families follow the same traditions. There is, but the court now is trying to, or probably comes up with a certain statute or president with presidents and decisions that they're going to be making regarding the poksai, but not all poksais are the same. Some poksais are being poksai because the child's parents both are deceased. Or another poksai style would be because another family member is willing to raise a child just so that they could help the brother or the sister take care of the child because there's an absence of a mother. Or the grandparents can adopt a grandchild and poksai, but they also come up with provisions. They might say something like, I'm going to help you raise your child, but you have to remember that when time comes, when we have to decide on real property, your child only inherits from your side because it's understood that it's enough for them to take care of the child, to raise the child. That's already a very big burden. So if that child comes back later after the parents die to claim inheritance, it is understood by the family that, okay, this is what they've said. You do not deserve the go. Yeah, but I wasn't being a poksai? Yeah, but that's not the conditions of how grandma poksaied you. Okay? So you have to be very careful when you make decisions because you have to understand what was the original intention of the parents or grandparents who intended to poksai. But I guess the courts have to debate that more and find out how they're going to come up with those kinds of decisions. That's with the poksai only.
The appropriate Chamorro term is not poksai.
Yeah.
It would be pineksai.
Yeah.
So poksai is it's a verb. It's what you do. And it can also refer to an oar in paddling a canoe. But more in tune generality when you're talking about family and rearing would be pineksai, the tradition of pineksai. And to add to Ms. Castro's comments, JP's, and I have to, Uncle Don, because he's my uncle. I have to defer with respect. But generally, families will consider the eldest as the stead of the parents if the parents are incapacitated or deceased. It is the eldest, but like Uncle Don referenced, it's not every single family that follows that. There are also incidences in history and probably in today's families, the child, the offspring that the parents see who will take into consideration all aspects of family tradition, family culture, family tenets. It would be that child to whom the parents would place the obligation of making sure that all family issues are addressed fairly. And this person assumes the position of itutor. Itutor mumanenea itano in cuenta dos mañana. The tutor, which is the legal equivalent of administrator or administratrix. And that is the offspring that the parents place their reliance to make sure that all things compliant with family tradition, cultural norms, cultural idioms are followed. And that child, that offspring, understands his or her role in making sure, in ensuring that the parents' wishes are carried out to the letter. Nothing written down. It's all oral, and it's all here and here.
I know Senor Nicholas will get into... Mine's not working. We're just beginning to cover that topic, and I know we'll get further deep into it in your part of our panel, but I did want to shift briefly to Senor Mandiola to start our conversation about traditional medicine, healing, sacred land, and I think most importantly, one thing we wanted to cover on today is access to those lands as well.
Okay, that's a very big point there, but it's really in Guam. Personally, I have no problems with access to obtaining medicine because I know where I need to get them, and they're very, very bountiful, except for a couple of herbs that I need to go to get from Rhoda, like the agahaga, tupunazuzu, and putpuput, and everything else is here, and I know where to get them. Some of them can be found at the sides of the road, some by the ocean, some in the mountains, some at Marpi, and I just know where they're at. I've been practicing for over 50 years. I started being a healer when I was, right before I was 9 years old. I learned from no less than 30 elders who have passed on their knowledge and their gifts to me. So I got to know those kinds of plants. And when I was about 9 years old, I knew about 165 recipes for healing, for medicines. And then I eventually, at the age of 12, I started spiritual healing, where I was healing people who were getting ill by the spirits and other types of supernatural causes. And because it's a whole lot easier to heal a patient with spiritual knowledge, I don't have to go grab the herbs and use them all the time. But I do still practice. And it's very important that we also, and I'm hoping soon, we would have at least an almond garden, somewhere near Obja, somewhere where the government can come up with, or public land can designate as a place to plant the medicines, like sumac, petsalang. I'm glad that I see Mr. Bermudez sitting there, because I learned a lot of recipes of healing from my aunt, his mother-in-law, Sinandi Nakiku. And a lot of the plants that we need, actually, I know where to get them. And I have a best friend of mine, Ike Concepcion. He's got a garden full of almond, so I would go there and get some when I need to. And the practice of gathering the medicine just falls on the person who makes the medicine. Or sometimes if we know of a person who knows where to get a certain type of herb or a type of ingredient, we'll ask them to go get it for us, because it's very difficult. I mean, I've been a teacher for over 35 years, and the only time I have for me to go gather the ingredients that I need for my recipes for healing is after school or over the weekend. And maybe understand that what we do, we don't charge a fee for anybody to pay us. So it's all on our time, our gas, our everything. But we don't complain, because we understand when we were called to this practice that we have to accept it as such. And I'm continuing it still. I'm still practicing. A lot of times I would go to Guam to treat my patients, or sometimes I would go to the States. Like 5 times already I've been to the United States to heal people, and also worked on video chat, and I can do that, I think. The access really falls on Guam, because I would go to Guam to treat some patients when they needed me to. So when I go there, I used to go to Litegsan, the Retidium Point, and now it's so barred up. I mean, it's all fenced, and the healers in Guam do not have access to the medicines there. That's why it's become a very big issue now in Guam with having to go collect the medicines. So this one, Suruhana Joamti, we call her Mamatsai. She's an 87-year-old, still kicking, very effective Joamti in Guam. And she treats over at the Sagang Kuturan Chamorro. It's a place there above, right in Tuman, above the Hilton Hotel. And she practices there, so I go there. And lo and behold, I would need certain herbs that I'm going to need for my patients that go to that center. It's like a healing center. I would go there and I find what I need, right enough to go drive up to Retidium Point.
And so, Senor Mendiola, as it relates to today's conversation, where do you see the law in support or areas that need to be changed when it comes to especially your medicinal traditional practices?
Oh, yeah, especially at the hospital, right? This is what happens. When people come to me and ask me if I could help them, I go, I would. But I go, have you gone to the hospital? And if they go, not yet. So please, you won't die tomorrow. Please go to the hospital and get diagnosed. Get checked with the doctor, see if there's anything very natural that they can help you with, and be helped up there. And then if not, you're more than welcome to come here. I always yield to the hospital. And then after that, if they can't find any cure for a certain illness that they go up there for at the hospital, then when they come, I try my best. And that's what I do. Or in numerous times. I've gone up to the hospital and I was never asked to leave, especially when it's having to do with a baby, an infant, at 2 o'clock in the morning before putting in the IV. They would come down to my house and I was like, can you please come and check because my baby is very sick and my child's got a very high fever and the doctor's about to put on the IV intravenous over on the baby, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's a child. So I said, okay, I'm coming. So come up there, and I tried what I could do, and I just did a prayer over the child, and the child gets better after 5 minutes. The fever's gone, and so I said, yeah. Then the doctors would occasionally say, I'm glad that you could do this. I go, I'm glad you're not kicking me out of the emergency room, so I'm here to help. And so it's okay, I'm fine. But in the future, like I said, maybe there should be, the government can provide stipend to the practitioners because we do this without a fee. We don't charge at all. Whatever comes from the heart is what we accept. If you give him a bag of puga, hey, si Diyos masi, thank you. Even for something like the shingles or daga or whatever, we don't charge. We don't expect anything out of people. A sincere thank you will suffice.
Thank you. I wanted to open it up to the rest of the panel. Senora Castro, Cabrera, Senor Seneclis, anyone else who would like to add to Senor Mendiola's?
Oh, one more thing before I forget. I'm sorry. Be it known. Let it be known. When I hear the name of God, and I don't hear the name of other spirits, okay? That's where I always believe my healing comes from.
I just wanted to test. He's not only up here as a zoamti, but I'm here as Zima Fanan Maamti. Plus, amti zo si Senor Donald Mendiola, and I do appreciate it. I attest to his abilities and his use of the various recipes that are used to help to heal people. Sizus Masi, Senor Mendiola. But just to lighten it, I did ask him one time to help me, and yet he said, it's your cholesterol, go to the hospital. Then he came and visited me when I was in the hospital.
Right, thank you. And Senora Cabrera, I wanted to shift the conversation to you and ask about what we're calling historical evolutions of the costumbre. But just your reflections and comments on. I know we're talking a lot of high level topics in this short amount of time, but just your reflection on how things have changed throughout the historical eras of our costumbre.
Yes, thank you. And if the audience and you all up here would allow me a short summation. Historically, as an indigenous people, ancient Chamorros, it was a matrilineal society. And up until the encroachment, if you will, of Western culture, what we practice today is the Chamorroized version of Hispanicized culture. The Spaniards were here the longest, 230 years, followed by Germany, very short, 14 years, and then Japan for a little less than 30 years, and then the advent of World War II, and now we're under the American flag. And so from a matrilineal society wherein it was clan-based, and so occupation of this entire archipelago and every single island had a population of ancient Chamorros, not just the larger islands, every single island shows evidence of habitation. And so as clan-based, there was a system of ordinance, and it was based on the clan council. The membership of which was predominantly female. These women addressed clan issues, familial disputes, who gets to go fishing and how far out into the reef or beyond they can go to fish, how far inland and up into the mountains they can garden, plant, and harvest, who gets to build canoes, who gets to go on voyages. Those kinds of issues were addressed by the clan council. And if I may point out, the ancient Chamorros, and this is evidenced by a document or journal kept by the earliest documentation, recording of ancient Chamorro customs by Juan Pobre. He was a brother who was so enthused, so excited about coming out to the Marianas that way out, with just the island of Rota appearing as a silhouette against the horizon, he jumped ship, swam ashore, and was welcomed by the clan that was there. He lived amongst this village for almost 7 months, documenting as much as he could what he was observing as ancient culture. And he said there may not be gold or silver or other riches to be had in these tiny islands way out here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But, and this is where Ms. Castro's reference to God, family, and the church as synonymous. Juan Pobre and his fellow religious to follow focused on the fact that there may not be riches here, but there is gold and other riches to be mined in the souls of these pagan people. Pobre takes it further. He says, for a people that doesn't have any codification of law, nothing is written in any fashion whatsoever, but they are a civilized, more civilized than Western civilized groups. If there is a conflict and it gets to the point where someone is killed as a result of that conflict, the perpetrator and his clan, they go over to the group of the decedent's clan. They ask for forgiveness. That's it. End of story. They go back to how they were. Because their understanding, their emotional depth of consideration and forgiveness was such that that did not affect how they would carry on with their daily activities subsequent to the incident. So what we're practicing today is largely what we've been handed down, what we have been acculturated to follow, dating back to the Spanish period and subsequent periods where it has not changed. We went from female to male. But if you observe today's family groupings and these societal makeups, we do have a male that's out there in public. That is the face of the family or the clan, so to speak. But when major decisions need to be made, it is always taken back home and deferred to the female of the family. That is law, still.
I attest to that. It's very true.
Senora Castro, did you want to add to what Senora Cabrera said about how things have shifted throughout time in our customs?
During the war.
Yes.
During the war, well, I was 11 years old during the war, and my father, during that time, all the male were taken away from the family, and the male, the father would be send all those male that's living on the north side was sent to the south, and vice versa. Those who are in the south were taken over to the north side. The reason for this is to cut communication completely from the family. And I remember that my father was heartbroken for my mother to be with us. I was 11 years old. I was the oldest one. My mother doesn't know anything about farming, and my father was the one who really works hard to raise the family. But when he was gone, my mother didn't know what to do. So one day she called me and she said, let's go down and look for something we can cook. And she spotted the bunch of banana, but she didn't know how to get that banana down. And so she finally took the machete and whammed 3 times. And when the banana came down, it went over her and she couldn't get up. I was only 10 years old. I couldn't get my mother out from the ground. But that incident was really very painful when I think back, because my mother was a father, a mother. She was the breadwinner, not knowing what to do. So my father, way out there in Aslito, was thinking about her family over on the north side in Marpi. That evening, he decided to go and see whether he could do something. So he left the camp and walked. Finally, he found a bicycle and he took that bicycle. He rode north, and he came at 1 o'clock in the morning. He called my mother. He said, Brinya, I'm here. I'm going to kill a cow, and my uncle will help you divide the meat. My father just went and killed the cow, and then my uncle helped my mother cut the meat for our provision while he was gone. My father took the bicycle 2 o'clock in the morning, hurrying to Aslito before he was missed. But during the war, it was really hard for everyone. And they told us the only way you can be safe is go and look for a cave where you can be safe. And one of the things that I kept thinking was the time when United States, in the beginning, the plan was to invade Saipan, I believe in October. But during that time, something was going on and nobody knew what was that. I hate to say this because it gives chill in my body, that there were 2 big holes on both sides of the island. The Chamorro male were digging that big hole on both sides of the island. Nobody knew what was that about. But later on, after the war, we learned what that big hole was for. They were going to throw all the Chamorros and Carolinian into that hole, and we would just be exterminated. And that was really a big thank you to our Lord that the United States changed the plan. Instead of invading Saipan on around October, they made the invasion earlier to June 15. Had not been for that, we would be all gone. No inhabitants in Saipan, because the Japanese was going to just kill everybody in the island, just like what they did with the Jewish concentration camp. And this was really a big news for us, and we never could thank God enough for the invasion that came earlier. And there were other things that I don't know whether I should say, but during the Japanese time, we were so devastated. We were taken away from our home in Garapan, and we were told to go to the farm. So we went to the farm, and everything what we had in the house, we just left only our personal belongings that we took. Other than that, we left everything, furniture and everything. And they told us that the Japanese are going to occupy our homes. We couldn't say anything, because if you say something, you will either be punished or tortured. Even I myself, during the Japanese time, I went through the Japanese school, but for me that school was like a punishment. And instead of learning, I was so scared in the classroom, because when I saw what happened to one of our Chamorro students, the Japanese teacher slapped him left and right and pushed him aside, kicked him. The child was crying, asking pardon, but the teacher was so angry at him. He slapped the boy and then kicked him, and the desk in the classroom were all upside down. I was so scared. I was only second grade. When I went back home, I cried. I told my mother, I said, I don't want to go to that school. But my mother said, if you don't go, your father will be punished. So every day to go to that school was really a torture for me. I did not learn much, but only the oral multiplication table. And amazingly, even until now, I still use the multiplication table in Japanese, because that's all what we do. Early in the morning, we recite the times table every day, and that's what stuck in my mind. But for me, school is supposed to be a second home for the child, instead of being a home, a torture. So I became a teacher later on, and every time I look at those children, I remember what I experienced during the Japanese time, and I make a promise that I will teach these children the way they should. They need to learn, enjoying learning instead of being tortured.
Thank you so much, Senora Castro. Your story is so moving and just a reminder of the blessing that it is to have this conversation and to hear your words. We can't forget in talking about these concepts that there are real human stories that have led us to this point in time. So thank you so much. We have just about half an hour left, and Senor Nicholas, I wanted to get to you. And where are we now in the customs, the traditions, in the law, in your practice, what you've seen? And I also know you wanted to get to explaining some of the other concepts as well.
Sure, if Patrick can cue it up. Is it ready? Yeah. All right. So what I did was I prepared a very short slide about Chamorro customary law. And I wanted to start with the value of land and how it's I guess what I'm trying to say is that the value of land is ingrained in our laws and in our cases. And it's a reflection of the people of the Northern Mariana Islands. And I wanted to start out with probably the most important legal document in the Commonwealth, which is the covenant. And as everybody knows, a covenant is the agreement that established the political relationship with the United States, between the United States and NMI. And Section 805 says, in view of the importance of the ownership of land for the culture and traditions of the people of the Northern Mariana Islands, and in order to protect them against exploitation and to promote their economic advancement and self-sufficiency, restriction of the acquisition of land is there. And it's limited to persons of Northern Marianas descent. Most people are aware of Article 12 being the provision in the Constitution that restricts land alienation, but it really has its roots in the covenant between the United States and the Northern Marianas. And so I wanted to show that provision to highlight the value of land to the indigenous people, not just to the Chamorros, but to the Rifalewash as well. The second slide, which is it's another concept of Chamorro tradition, which is Izun Manyaina. Literally, it's belonging to your ancestors. And our legislature actually enacted that into our statutes. And so when we have a probate action, the question becomes if this is the decedent or the deceased is of Northern Marianas descent and is Chamorro, was the land Idzun Manyaina? Is it the ancestors' land? And so the definition under 8 CMC 2107 is land acquired by a person in any manner from one or more of his Chamorro ancestors of Northern Marianas descent, whether by inheritance, gift, will, or family agreement. And that's important in the probate process because the law gives instruction to the court as to how to treat, how to distribute that land. And the policy behind that is that the Chamorros really believed that land should transfer from one generation to the other. And so if you go to the next slide, it says that the surviving, if let's say there is a surviving spouse in the estate, the surviving spouse obtains a life estate with the issue, which is the children, obtaining a vested remainder in fee simple. So, for example, if there's a lot that is part of the estate, and it is the deceased's ancestors' land, it was given to him by his father, his mother, his grandfather, then the court would treat that as ancestor land, and it would provide for a life estate for the surviving spouse, but the children would receive it in fee simple. Okay, and that was, again, a policy or a custom of the Chamorro. If there's no surviving spouse, then it goes directly to the children. Now, this is if there's no will. So this is under what we call the intestacy laws of the Commonwealth. And so that's an example of the legislature enacting Chamorro traditions into our statutes. The next slide. I really like the backdrop here. This is a picture of a young Chamorro boy giving the utmost respect, and we call manginge in Chamorro, which is to basically kiss the hand or smell the hand of the elder. And the quote that I highlighted is from the estate of Cabrera. It was another, it is a NMI Supreme Court ruling that had to do with Chamorro traditions. And this quote, I remember reading this when I was studying for the bar exam. But by the way, I learned all of this when I was studying for the bar exam. I was not aware of this before. And it says that we find that many aspects of Chamorro custom are relevant for our consideration. We turn to a respected study on the ethnology of the people of Saipan, which has been cited on many occasions to the by the trust territory courts and Commonwealth courts. So I guess for the benefit of the attorneys out there, this is the case where the NMI Supreme Court really relied on Chamorro custom in order to consider the case and to rule on the case. And as an attorney practicing in the NMI, something that I'm personally proud of. I don't know of any other jurisdictions where the courts rely on customary law, but here in the Commonwealth, we do. The next slide. This is just a quote from the estate of Antonio Barcinas, where it explains what a partida is, and I briefly explained it earlier. It is a Chamorro custom that occurs when a father calls his family together and outlines the division of property among his children. And the legislature also enacted that tradition into our statutes. It's 8 CMC 2919, and it says, if a person dies intestate as to all his or her estate, property which the person gave in his or her lifetime to an heir by partida or otherwise is treated as an advancement against the latter's share. So again, in our statutes, the custom of partida is recognized and it is honored in the courts. Finally, Pinexai, I said Poksa, but she's correct. Pinexai is a traditional Chamorro adoption whereby the customary adopted child is treated as though the child were a natural and legitimate child of the adoptive parent. And so these concepts under Chamorro, Costumbrin Chamorro, are embedded into our statutes. It's within our covenant. It's part of our jurisprudence. And as a student of our Chamorro and even our Carolinian heritage, I'm very proud of that fact. And you can't say that in many other jurisdictions. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them now or after. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Senor. I appreciate it. I've learned a lot, and even before the panel started, multiple of you told me you consider yourself students yourself, learning, being molded, even as you go on with life. I have various audience member questions, and I think I'll just get to them because there's over a dozen here. But did you want to touch on any points?
Yes. Again, I beg your indulgence. I'd like to add to what JP mentioned. Yes, the covenant is the binding agreement per what the people of the Northern Mariana Islands in our relationship with the U.S. federal government and how we govern ourselves. But let me emphasize here that our fathers, because it was largely men that came to the table, to eventually become the instruments by which the eventual establishment of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands came to bear. But the individuals that signed the covenant on the Chamorro and Carolinian side, these people never forgot the basis of this adherence to land was never only about the land. It was land and ocean, one and the same. There was no distinction. The distinction came when Western culture, Western governance came in. And you know the colloquial term, divide and conquer? Well, there it is, right there. But we should never forget that land is synonymous with the ocean around us. And this environment is our identity. We cannot separate one from the other, which is probably why we lost the case against our submerged properties. Because we continue to function or be forced to function in a system that plays by the rules of the dictator, which is not the indigenous component. And what we have today, what we retain and will continue to retain and pass on to our progeny, is this lifeline that our ancestors gave to us. That is their legacy. And that legacy is responsible stewardship of our maritime environment. And that includes family system, societal system, governance, civil, religious, etc. That should govern how we continue forward. We move forward with how laws should be written and enforced. We should never forget and allow an extraneous element to dictate what our considerations, cultural considerations, should be.
Thank you for that. And I wanted to shift to audience questions because they're questions that came up in my mind and have, are directly related to our conversation today. And the first of which is about disputes. This audience member asks, are there Chamorro practices involving the resolution of disputes between Chamorros or between family members before going to court? And I think, Senor Mendiola, you summed it up well when you said every tradition and practice is done differently in families. So anyone want to answer this question about disputes, how it's
about
resolved
disputes
before court?
Yeah. Well, the practice is supposedly the father or the head of the household, with, of course, the mom has to be there. I mean, we're still matrilineal also, and most of everything that's decided, the father will usually have a talk with the wife, or the eldest female would make some sideline decisions. So what they do is they get everybody to come together, and if there's a dispute between siblings, then they sometimes have to get the grandparents or the aunts or the uncles to come in to also be part of that resolution when they have to talk to each other and try to resolve it before coming to court. At times, they do resolve it without coming to court. But then I've heard of some cases where they've resolved it at home, and then they were told by the court that it's too late. It's already there in the schedule, so you have to come in. And it goes right through.
Just very short adage to that. We have never been a court-based cultural group. We contain conflict within the family grouping. If there is an issue from within the immediate family, then we have the parents, and they do allow the parties involved to state their case. But the parents, as parents, would always focus on what would be fair and what is right and what is just. And that I've seen that throughout my lifetime with my parents and my grandparents and elders throughout the community. But there have been and continue to be cases where you would need a neutral component, not the parents, not siblings, not grandparents. There's usually someone within the extended family that they consider a neutral component who would then, considering the arguments put forth, and not render a decision, but put forth a consideration to be entertained by everybody involved. And then from there would result resolution of whatever the issue is on the table.
Senora Castro, Senor Nicholas, did you want to add about what you've experienced or heard of in resolving disputes before going to court?
I guess I can share a personal experience, just within my family. And at the time, maybe I wasn't aware that it was cultural, but thinking back, my mother had a reason. So I have a brother who's very boisterous growing up, and he would get into trouble here and there. And whenever he did, my mother would make sure that I would personally visit whoever he offended or whoever he had a fight with, especially if he had an older brother who was of my age, that I go there and I ask for forgiveness. I didn't understand at the time why she would, insist that I do it, but perhaps it was her way of that, inafamolik, trying to bring people together. So personally speaking, I do believe in that custom of, if it's possible, to seek a resolution, although it's probably against my personal interest as a lawyer, but it really would be better if matters get resolved amicably, or if it's between Chamorro or Carolinians through the traditions of the Chamorro customary of inafamolik. Thank you.
And I don't know if that answers this other question about, are there any remaining echoes of the ancient matrilineal clan council system in resolution of disputes today? So that's a bit of a follow-up. Are there echoes? What are the?
I come from a family where I have 3 older siblings who are all female. A lot of times I would know more than what they know, but then I have to close my mouth. When they're talking, I'll let them talk. Then when they're all done, we run out of words, and then that's when I give it to them. And then they go, "Why didn't you tell us?" I go, "I have to respect you because you have to talk first. So when you're done, that's when I can correct you." They go, "You made me waste my time." I go, "That's okay." But there's still that part where we have to humble ourselves. We always have to show respect to our older siblings. And I think you all know who I'm talking about. My sister Margaret Palacios. When she talks, and then after she's done, I talk to her. It's like, "Why did you waste my time?" I go, I wanted you to talk first. But then we resolve it. We're always doing good. We're very matrilineal. She's our mother. My parents have passed on. And everybody comes to see her. But we do that on Friday nights. Like tonight, we're having a happy hour. And we'll sit down and we'll discuss updates, weekly updates within the family. So our family unit is very cohesive. We've been doing this ever since I came back from the States after college. Back in 1987, I started out with every Sunday. I would make kadun binadu and azuzu, whatever. And then I'll call my siblings. "Come on over, come and join me for dinner. Come and join me and Dad and Mom," because my 3 other siblings were still attending university in California. So I was the only kid at home with my parents. So I always kept bringing them back every Sunday. And then it became a tradition. And then we started moving it to Saturday for the kids as well, the grandkids and great-grandkids. And then now it's just every week, Friday nights, the siblings. And then we'll schedule once in every 2 weeks picnic with the whole entire family. It's still very strong. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, my dad would say no, and then my mom would be like, "Bija," and then it goes my way. It just turns around. She was easily changing everything, but always because she loved us and she always felt sorry for us when we were going to be punished.
Hey, thank you. I think we have time for maybe 3 more questions from the many that we got from our various audience members. But I think since we're talking about these customs and our personal experiences with them, this audience member wants to know what customs are enforceable in the courts. And so I know, Senor Seneclis, you covered a few of it, but are there any others of the ones we've spoken that in name and in practice in the courts?
I think I mentioned a few of them, and that's primarily in the probate area of the law. I don't have an exhaustive list, but those are what I'm most familiar with. I think if it's anything that has to do with the criminal law, then of course the criminal laws and procedures, those prevail. I know that the CNMI courts has instituted some alternate dispute resolution program within the courts, so that these disputes can probably get resolved without having to go to trial. But I'm not, I don't have any other examples other than the ones that I just shared.
All right, and just a quick one before getting to our final question that I hope each of you can answer, but this one is for possibly Senor Mendiola. This audience member is asking, is there sacred land in the Northern Marianas, and is it protected by law?
Every part of Saipan is sacred. So when you talk about sacred land, maybe Calavera Cave would be one of those that they're probably thinking of. Naftan Point, some areas in the beaches around Saipan, the cliffs. What's sacred? I believe what is sacred is what you have, what you deem sacred in your heart, and where you believe where the ancestors have left their imprints of our culture, of our knowledge, everything that they taught us about how they lived and everything. So to be considered sacred, I don't know, with the concept of what is sacred is a place where some Totomona died, a hallowed ground like the cemetery. People do all kinds of weird things nowadays that they don't even respect the cemetery. However, I would say that a lot of the ancient sacred places are those places where you can go there and you can sense their presence. You sense the positive energy. You can sense that healing energy there. And each individual person, especially us here, Marianas, Chamorros, and even anybody that comes to Saipan, they will feel that. They're there. They're just in a different dimension. They're with us here. You may not be aware, but there's more than triple the size of the population of these people in here who are present inside this place where we're talking. They're here, and you can probably sense them. And they're smiling because they like the fact that we're doing something. The justice system is doing something to acknowledge their presence and what they've gone through to educate us to reach this point in our lives where we can go back and try to show that we do care. And they do care for us. The Totomona that a lot of people refer to, they punish people because they break rules. They go in the jungle, they pee, they disrespect the place. Then they get punished. They get smacked every now and then. Then they get sick, they go to a healer. The healer withdraws and says, the reason why you got sick is because of this and this and that. This is what you did. It's not really a punishment, but it's a lesson. You are being taught a lesson. And then the patient would be like, how did you know that? The person who did this to you is just right beside me and telling me, whispering in my ear. And then before anything else, they'll go, yeah, I did. I go, you have to admit it now. Yes, I did. Do I have to go apologize? No, it's okay. Just be a better person next time. Take care of your kids. Be a good provider. They do that. I meet around with them again at the store, elsewhere. I've been doing good, and I've been feeling better. I go, good. Now, you can still go to that place, go to the beach. But just remember, you have to respect them. They came before us. They're present with us all the time, only in a different dimension.
But yes, every single centimeter is sacred of these islands. But we are now operating in a system where sacred, again, the definition has been dictated to us from a source outside of the culture. Every single piece of Saipan and all the islands up and down the archipelago is sacred. The ocean is sacred. Uncle Don knows because that's fierce medicine out there from the ocean versus medicine that you have from terra firma. And this is information that we have gotten from our ancestors, and we still have, those of us that are traditional healers. But sacred, our kids need to understand, and this is where their education is paramount. It should start at home. You start with learning your genealogy, because from your learning your family history, that pulls in other dimensions of your cultural sphere. You need to understand your identity, because when you do, then you can move onward and forward, or even sideways, to continue their legacy of responsible stewardship. Whether you're here, or you're stateside, or anywhere else on this planet, we're not the only indigenous group that has strong ties to land and water. Our Native American brothers and sisters, our Micronesian brothers and sisters, our Aborigine brothers and sisters, everywhere in the world that we still have indigenous, living and practicing indigenous groups. We are living examples of those ties to our ancestors that live on and should live on. So we need to consider the extraneous element, what those definitions, what those operative terms are, and place them in context with our cultural equation. It should be our cultural equation that is the dominating factor and the dictating factor. And this is where I think jurisprudence, we cannot allow legal tenets that subjugate or exterminate the culture to be predominant. It would not be human to do that.
There's so much to follow up on. Senora Castro, yes, please. Did you want to add?
One of the things that I would like to mention is really our culture is basically Catholic, and the priests and the sisters work so hard to educate our children, our parents. We cannot forget how the missionaries stayed here to guide us all through our lives. I remember Father Tardio is really a saintly priest. He will not let us anything that is wrong. He will just tell the people. And on Sunday, every Sunday, I admire this priest. He is so solid in his teaching. He wanted the people to work the way they should. There is only two things what he usually say. There's only two ways, the right and the wrong. And Father Tardio is so firm in guiding the people to go through the right way. There are, the commandments. Every Sunday, he reviewed the 10 commandments that we have to. We have the rules, and we have to obey the rules. And I always thank the priest for giving us that solid training. Because of our Catholic faith.
And so, Senora Castro, I want to ask the last question in line with exactly what you said about the right way and the wrong way. And so this, for our last question, which if each of you can answer briefly in the 5 minutes we have left, this attorney wants to know, how do I show respect to my Chamorro clients? How can attorneys show respect to the Chamorro clients they represent in court?
The Chamorro.
Their clients, the people they represent in court.
We are, the Chamorro people are very respectful everywhere. And this is through the Catholic teaching that we received from the missionaries. I wanted to say that the sisters who came from Spain, they were 95 years ago when they came here to Saipan to teach the Chamorro people. And I wanted for us at least to say thank you to those sisters in Maturana, because they were the one that stayed all since 1929 when they first came to Saipan to teach the Chamorro people. Yeah.
And we'll just go down the line. This audience member is asking, how do I, as an attorney, show respect for my Chamorro clients?
Be human. Everyone's human. Be able to listen. Be more compassionate. Try to be understanding. Try to know the culture. You don't just send somebody into a culture. It's like, okay, this is how you're supposed to do it, blah, 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 blah. No. They're gonna fire you. I mean, they're gonna just discontinue doing it, work with you. Try to understand them. And I hope that the judiciary would, every now and then, when you have new attorneys, do an orientation of the Chamorro culture, the Caribbean culture. I mean, what's so wrong or what's so difficult about maybe have them take a class at NMC on Chamorro culture, Caribbean culture. Because they're going to be here, working here. You can't work with people you don't know. You got to know their culture. You got to understand who they are. And then that's when you can communicate with them. Maybe that's when they can cooperate with you. And that's when maybe you can become more effective as attorneys. Because that was an attorney asking, right? So this is just my opinion. My advice and my suggestion, that know your clients. They don't know you. Because when they hire you, they only think of you as, oh my God, how much am I going to pay this guy? Is it going to be affordable? Whereas you have to understand your attorney. And your attorney has to be able to also explain things. Try to be human. Try to teach. Try to remember that you know more about the law. That's why they're hiring you. Because had they known it, they can probably represent themselves. I mean, I've seen it on TV. Now they've won. But then they need your help. So try to be considerate. Try to have more compassion. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Maybe it could be just that simple. But hey, you have a good ear. Maybe you can understand them. Maybe you didn't have to go all the way through to the courts. Maybe you can say, hey, wait a minute. We can solve this here. And then we'll just, blah, blah, blah. It works. I mean, you have to know people too. You know your job. But if you know your job, you don't know your people. What's the use? You can go out there and just blah, 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 blah. Nobody understands you. And especially when you have the jury come up. The jury here in the Marianas, they're very compassionate. They really, I tell you, no matter what you do, they have that unique gift that's inside. It's a seed, compassion. So know how to work with it. Sorry. Shut up, Siri. I didn't even call her. Okay. Okay, Siri. Yeah. How to do that? To understand? It takes all kinds of ways to do that. You can experiment. Maybe you have the gift. Maybe you have it. I mean, just talk to the person and say, wow, you're okay. You respect them. Just remember that if you're an attorney, you're the one who's working for your client. It's your client that's paying you, so you have to know how to make him smile too. Okay?
So everything that Uncle Don referenced, but also equally important, pay attention to what is not said.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that.
What was the question again? I'm just kidding.
Siri.
I guess I can. I think as a practical matter, the first thing, if you're an attorney and you're representing local people, if you don't understand the language, or maybe if you're relatively new here, get to understand the culture. So there's a lot of resources out there in our libraries, even within our case law. There's mentions of the cultures of the Northern Marianas people. But I think someone said it best earlier when they said, listen. No. So as attorneys, we may know the law, but we know zero about the facts. And so it's the clients who come in and give us sometimes very biased facts, but they are the holder of the facts. And you get more facts as you talk to them and do more research or investigate. But really understand the culture. If you don't understand the culture, seek those who do, or read, like there was mention about Alex Bower's study on the people of Saipan post-war. There are other wonderful resources at the Northern Marianas College. But be curious as to who your individual client is, particularly if they're Chamorro or Carolinian, and don't be afraid to engage, especially if it has to do with land. And that's been my experience. If it has to do with land, if you're Chamorro or Carolinian, there's something, and you're going to catch it when you're talking to them. Just listen. With one client, the way that he said "tata," which is father, you just knew that there's something sentimental about that land because Tata gave it to me. Tata told me that it's from. And so, just be prepared to really listen to what they have to say, because they have the facts and you don't. And then from there, move on and help them to resolve whatever issue that is. Thanks.
Well, it's yes, just last word.
I'm sorry, there's so much that needs to be discussed here with this very topic. As indigenous people, and not unlike other groups worldwide, we don't own land. That has never been part of our lexicon. We don't own land. We don't own the ocean. We belong to it. That's why when your client said "tata," because that person's father belonged, he identified as being part of that parcel.
All right, thank you so much. It's been an honor to listen to you all and learn, especially as a young Chamorro myself. I respect everything that you've said, and I hope to continue the conversation after this. So thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas, and our panelists. Let's give them a nice round of applause again. We thank Thomas, Auntie Darling, Sus Maasi, Senor Mendiola, Genevieve, and Attorney JP. Thank you so much. I'd like to call on our bench members to please come forward, and so we can give our certificates to our panelists and our moderator.
Take pictures.
Judge Bogdan? Judge Bogdan? For Maria Soledad Camacho Castro, Donald Mendiola, Genevieve Cabrera, Attorney Joey P. San Nicolas, and our awesome moderator, Thomas Menglonia.
Awesome moderator. Thank you.
If we'd like to respectfully request for Chief Judge Menglonia and our Magistrate Judge Heather Kennedy to please join us also. CJ Mona, if I can interrupt, please join us on stage. Mahalan si CJ Tomas. Oh, you haven't? Okay, she'll go there. Yes. Sorry. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, this is the official one.
Yeah,
You want to move it? You want to move it? Move it.
One more, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, one.
That's a sign of respect.
Sorry, one more.
Estai fina tai you are part of an ogre Zani queen